We were out on the ocean, tearing, and wanted more of a rush, so we gunned it toward deeper water. Out in the middle of the sea, we stumbled across an atoll lagoon, the kind that's completely cut off from the ocean most of the time and only connects to open water when the tide comes in. We got hyped and raced right in to keep the party going. What we didn't know was that disaster was already creeping up on us. Before long, the jet skis were suddenly launched from below by some massive force, and the phone went straight into the water. I heard the commotion and jumped up to look, but all I could see was a jet ski bobbing in the distance. Luckily, the two who'd been thrown off surfaced pretty quickly. Julie climbed back onto the inflatable raft first and finally had a chance to ask what the hell just happened.
What the hell was that?
I don't know. I'm gonna check on the engine.
On the other hand, didn't care about any of that. All he wanted to know was whether his jet ski was busted. But the moment he climbed back on to check, an orca's tail launched him clean into the air.
Yes!
That's when Ray realized something was seriously wrong, and he started swimming toward us like his life depended on it. But it was too late. Just as he was about to pull himself onto the raft, he was yanked under. Seconds later, the water around him turned a deep, sickening red. I couldn't make out exactly what was down there, but I knew we had to get out of the water immediately. There was a rocky outcrop not far away, so Julie and I carefully started paddling toward it, terrified that any sudden movement would draw the creature's attention. In the very next moment, we both froze. A roughly 30-foot orca glided slowly beneath us, sending blood-tinged ripples splashing across our bodies. After that, fear took over completely. We paddled toward the rocks, but just as we were about to reach them, the raft jerked to a stop and started getting dragged backward. No matter how hard we fought it, we couldn't break free, and we were pulled all the way back to where we'd started before the force finally let go. Turns out there was a tow rope dangling from the back of the raft, and the orca had grabbed onto it to haul us back. I quickly pulled the rope out of the water, but even that didn't let me relax for a second. What struck me as even stranger was that this orca's dorsal fin was bent, and that only happens to orcas that have been kept in captivity. I thought it was strange that a released orca would still attack humans, but this wasn't the time to think about that. Our only shot at survival was making it to those rocks. I kept trying to calm Julie down while we waited for the orca to pass beneath us again. Julie gathered her courage and jumped into the water, while I stayed frozen on the raft. On top of that, stuff had spilled out of my backpack. I watched as my hearing aid batteries drifted away on the current. I reached out to grab them, but the orca was already heading our way. I had no choice but to give up and scramble back onto the raft. The orca locked onto Julie, who was swimming through the water. Fortunately, she was already close to the rocks. Sensing the threat closing in, she didn't care about the jagged edges and hauled herself up from below, scraping against the surface the whole way. Once I saw she was safe, I let out a breath and tossed my backpack over to her. But the motion was too big, and the rope slipped back into the water. Julie grabbed a rock and signaled that she'd distract the orca, so I could make a swim for it. But then I heard a hissing sound behind me. I whipped around. The rope in the water had gone taut as a wire, and the raft was losing air fast, deflating right out from under me. I had no choice. I jumped in and swam for my life. I made it to the rocks by the skin of my teeth. Once we caught our breath, we finally had a chance to check ourselves over. Julie had gashed her thigh climbing up, so I pulled off my jacket, used a sharp rock to tear it in half, one piece to wrap her leg and the other to bandage my own foot. After patching ourselves up, we sat down and tried to figure out what to do next.
It just doesn't make any sense. Orcas have never, ever killed a human in the wild. The only time they've ever killed anybody is when they have been trapped in captivity.
That's when it all finally made sense. After being released, the orca had wandered into the lagoon during high tide and gotten trapped when the water receded. It thought it was still locked up in the aquarium, and that's why it was attacking anything that entered its water.